Hello, how are y'all? Ooh, let me scooch this a little bit this way. Yeah, yeah, buddy. Oh yeah. Um, well, as is my normal routine for live streams, although it's been a long time since I've actually done a live stream because it's been a long time since I've been able to do a live stream. Um, and but my my and the reason for that is because YouTube screwed me over. YouTube saw to it that my first channel got taken down for spurious reasons. Um, and the worst thing about that was, of course, that all my videos were lost. Every single video that I'd recorded since like 2017, gone. Gone. Gone, baby, gone. Never coming back. No backups. And it's not like the videos that I record, it's not like I think of these as like art or anything. So it wouldn't be like if my books were lost or something like that. But it was still really irritating. And it was worse than irritating. It was enraging. And I had to start all over again uh, from what was then my backup channel. And so it's taken a while, but slowly I've built up to 1,000 followers, and that's the magic number where you can do live streams and have them be public. So y'all can, as you're, I see some people coming on, and or there were three and now there are two. So I don't know. It might be a smaller crowd tonight, but that's fine. I won't mind. I don't mind. But my normal shtick for live streams is to do a little speaking part beforehand, and then I will go back and look at your questions. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, if you've got things that you want me to respond to, just sit through my the piece that I'm speaking here at the beginning, and I will get to your questions, your comments, your concerns, your praise, your criticism, whatever it might be. I don't just, like I've said this before, but it's been a long time since I've done a proper live stream. So I'll just say it again now. I don't do the thing where I just like a lot of people do, where it's like, well, I guess I'll just sit around and wait until people come on, because that's just boring. And this is like something I like to think anyway that this is something people will watch even if they don't see it live, and that it will still be entertaining or whatever my videos are. Whatever makes them worth watching. If it's not entertaining, then some other word, some other descriptive word. So I wanted to start out by saying a couple things. First of all, I am really into this book right now, and it's a book that I've been aware of for a while. And oh shit, I don't remember the author's name. Let me see if I can find it here, because it would be kind of gauche of me not to mention his name. The title of the book is Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon. Some of you may have heard of it. So let me just look that up here. Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon by David McGowan, who is no longer with us, unfortunately. Now, this was a book that I first became aware of back around the time that it was written, which was, I think, 2013, 2014. And I think that McGowan had actually written, had written up most of the material that was eventually put together in the book, like on a website. And eventually he just decided to put it all together into a book. Uh, and I remember when I first was hearing about it in 2014 or so, I was thinking, man, this sounds really far fetched. This, I don't know. The premise of this just, you know, I was at, this was at the time when I was very much, starting to become red pilled, or when I was starting to believe, like, not to, starting to believe conspiracy theories. When, there was a period where I was just sort of fascinated by conspiracy theories, but didn't really believe them, but also didn't disbelieve them. And then, like, around that period of time, I started seeing things differently, and my eyes were starting to open to this kind of stuff. But McGowan's book was just way out there. It was so out there that I couldn't. I just didn't. I just couldn't buy it. And the premise of it is that if this is the first time you're hearing of this premise, it might sound to you like crazy too. But the premise of it is essentially that the entire '60s hippie culture was astroturfed. It was something that was created um, by intentionally by culture creators from on high for their own nefarious purposes. And specifically, what he goes into is the Laurel Canyon scene. The Laurel Canyon scene is where most of the, like the what's considered great American music from the '60s and '70s. Uh, it's where a lot of it came out of, and it's where all these musicians flocked to. It's Laurel Canyon is just outside of Los Angeles, um, and I'm not going to go into any great detail about it here, but I would like to say that it's my second time reading this book, and when I say reading it, I'm reading it on Audible, which is, because I happen to be driving around a lot right now for reasons that are not really crucial for me to go into, but um, uh, it's sometime around the first time I was reading it, I was thinking, what, this he's making a lot of really good points here. Damn. Um, this is there may not be a smoking gun per se, but there's a lot of really interesting evidence that suggests that these people, this group of people that that were taught to think of in a certain way, as being countercultural, fighters of the establishment, anti-war, all that stuff. That it just so happens that nearly all of them, or an enormous number of them, a hugely disproportionate number of them, are from military intelligence families. Uh, it's so much so that it just boggles the mind. And he brings the goods. McGowan, uh, you know, uh, and he's working from mainstream sources. He's not getting any of this stuff from fringe publications. It's all just stuff that it's like the stuff that's out. It's fascinating how there's some stuff that's just out there to be gleaned, but that some people, it just lies dormant for a long, long time, and then suddenly somebody like Dave McGowan, puts the pieces together and says, wait a minute here, and people like me initially are skeptical, and then we read his book just to see what we think, and then we're like, wow, holy heck, he's making some really good points here. This is not looking good. And I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but let me just say that uh, for example, Jim Morrison of the Doors. Of course, everybody knows Jim Morrison. as one of the rock idols of that period. And he's thought of as this countercultural figure and all that. His father was an admiral in the Navy, and he was involved in the Gulf of Tonkin incident. He was like the one of the top brass who was involved in the Gulf of Tonkin moment, whatever it's called. Essentially it was a false flag, and I think everybody acknowledges it as such now. But what was claimed was that they were attacked in the Gulf of Tonkin by North Vietnamese forces, and this meant that they needed to get into the Vietnam War because they'd been attacked first, and so it was North Vietnam's provocation. I think the United States had been sending troops there already in a covert sort of way, but now this was their excuse to say, all right, it's war. And essentially that's when the Vietnam War began in earnest. And that was Jim Morrison's dad, who was the admiral on that ship that was involved in the Gulf of Tonkin incident. I mean, why do we not hear about that? Why has that never been? Why has attention never been drawn to that? Before Dave McGowan. So, if this is the sort of thing that interests you, I would recommend it. And I would also say, speaking of like putting the pieces together, things just looking weird, and then you put the pieces. Someone puts the pieces together. Someone says, "Hey, that doesn't look right," and then starts to realize certain things. I kind of feel the same way about with the way that I feel about well, I'll just say, without going into great detail about it, because I've recorded a couple of videos about it, and I don't want to be tedious here. But I have an article up on my Substack page. Oh yeah, I have a Substack page. Did y'all know that? If you don't, maybe you should check it out, and maybe you subscribe, and maybe become a paid subscriber. I don't know. I don't make it so that there's only one article on my Substack channel that you have to pay to read, and that's one that contains juicy information about my personal life. So so I decided, if you want to read this one, you got to pay, brother. But everything else is free. That's just one out of, I don't know how many articles I've got up there now. But my most successful article, as successful as far as readership goes, as far as generating interest, as far as getting clicks, is an article entitled "The Deep State is Ukraine. Ukraine is the Deep State," and it's an article that I had led up to with a couple of pieces that I'd written prior to that, where I talk about my whole idea about why the woke thing started, why it ever began. And when it began, it wasn't called woke. It was called political correctness. And it was in the early 90s that we first started getting swamped with political correctness, where it was given this kind of free rein. Before that, there was no political correctness. There was, like, on college campuses and in certain insular settings, but it was only in the early 90s that it was allowed to just gain this kind of momentum. That it hasn't really let up. I mean, it's kind of gone in fits and starts. Sometimes it goes full bore, and then it kind of rests on its laurels for a little while, but it's never extinguished. It's never been extinguished in all that time, in the 30 years or so, since the time when it just inexplicably started up. And when did it inexplicably start up, and gain this kind of momentum? Right after the end of the Cold War. All right, right at the end, before the Cold War ended, as long as the Soviet Union existed, um, and as long as there was still a Cold War, there was no political correctness did not gain a foothold. Yeah, there were liberals, there were feminists, there were gay rights people, there was racial animus, there were all the things that political correctness or wokeness is about nowadays. There wasn't nearly so much trans stuff. That's been like the last 5 or 7 years. They've really gone pedal to the metal with that stuff. But anyway, it was all around. I mean, there were the ideologies were out there, but it just didn't gain this full head of steam the way that it had, the way that it began to um, at in the early 90s. So just putting the pieces together, and of course watching that one Jason Giorgiani interview, which sadly is no longer up, where he talked a lot about Operation Paperclip. Um, that got me to thinking, like, what's going on here, like, um, and anyway, I don't want to go into great detail about it and bore anybody right now. Uh, but if you're interested in, if you smell what The Rock is cooking, and you want to find out more, then go to my Substack channel, or go to my Substack page, or you can there's also videos I've recorded on these kinds of subjects, but some of the more recent ones that I wrote for Substack where I'm really, sort of putting my thoughts in a more systematic way. When I come on here onto YouTube, I tend to ramble a bit. I don't know, and people say that I don't talk fast enough, or people complain about my style of presentation, that I never get to the point, and blah blah blah. But other people seem to like the way that I talk about things. So I don't know. You can't please everyone. I know that I'm not the most dynamic kind of speaker, but I do, again, consider myself more of a writer than a speaker, than an impromptu, extemporaneous speaker, which is what you generally do here. So just like McGowan did, well, not just like it, because I'm not going to compare myself to Dave McGowan, because he did a lot of actual research, and I'm not really much of a researcher. I don't write books with extensive footnotes where I quote things extensively. That's just not what I'm into. But I am interested in the spirit of the times, and the general zeitgeist, and what we're being talked into believing, and why, and who's zooming who, in the words of Aretha Franklin. Some of you 80s people will like that one. You guys who just quote 80s songs will like that one. So that's my spiel to start things out. I see we've got a few people out there. Let me see what we got so far so far as comments. Okay. Orthodox Phronosis. Hey, OP, are you well, maybe I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't ask you that. You shared with me that there was a change in your life, that you are moving to a new setting, and I don't know if that was meant to meant to be for public consumption, but out of curiosity, I just wondered if you were at your new setting or not. And Wiki is live at last. Armored Ghost. Orthodox. I'm not a foot fetish. Uh, Congrats on 1K subs. Well, enjoy it while it's there because I often see like I get up. It's like it's glacial. The gains that I make, as far as subscribers go, is kind of glacial in that I gain 5 and then I lose 4, and then I gain 3 and then I lose 2 and then I gain 2 and then I lose 3. Sometimes it goes backwards. Um, so I'm at 1,001 subs right now, which is just over the mark. But a couple people drop out, or YouTube just decides to unsubscribe them, which I know it does. For then I'm back below the Maginot line. So um, remember, no unsolicited advice. You can give unsolicited advice, but I won't read it. All right. I feel like Andy's done live streams before, says Scott. Yes, I've done them. I have done them, but it's been a long time, Scott. It's been since you're an alter comfer. You and me go back a long, long way. I remember riding in your car at the what was it? Was it the NPI conference, or was it the thing in Tennessee? Uh, so yeah, we go back a ways, you and I. I think that was sometime in the aughts. But I had live streams on my old channel because on my old channel I had 4,000 plus subs, and so I was well over the mark. But then YouTube screwed me over, like I said, and I had to start from scratch. And I've just now, since starting from scratch, which I think I had to do like at the end of 2000 or the beginning of 2001, I've just now gotten up to 1/4 of what I had before. Scott says, I think Michael Hoffman was my entry into conspiracy world. I know, he wrote the book about like Revelation of the Method, and like he seems like he did a lot about Freemasonry and stuff. I haven't read him, but I've heard of him. I know about him. Okay, Paul Wright, Righteous Evening. I like that. Right and Righteous Evening from Peoria, Illinois. Hey, will it play in Peoria? That's the question, huh? But you've never heard that one before. If Andy's going to do live streams, we need fan jargon. Okay. Uh, I'll leave that up to y'all. Low status hellos, Andy, says Scott Terry. Hello. Thanks. Back to you. Hit that like button and subscribe. Yeah, hit that like button. I see we've gotten 3 likes. I don't harp on the like button, but I appreciate it I appreciate the support. Lenny, great to see you do live streams. Thank you. It's nice to be able to do them again. We'll see how long it lasts. I think when I get a few more subscribers, when I'm more over the mark, over the 1,000 mark, instead of just barely being over it or at it, then we'll see. We'll take it from there. Stoically slam that like button with cynical apathy. Yeah, there you go. Yes, Morrison's dad was an admiral, as I was saying. Jim Morrison was an occultist. Yeah, I mean, obviously. I mean, a lot of these people were, and that shows their connections to the elite. No doubt about it. Gulf of Tonkin connection, yes. I read the Doors book. Paul, I don't know what book that is. Is that just about the Doors music? Judas Fly based Michelin says Shalom. Back at ya. Lenny, was Indiana Jones 2 seen as the worst one? Then Indy 4, Crystal sucks, and now we have a new winner. No, see, I'm not with you there. I like Temple of Doom. I'm partial to Temple of Doom. It's dark, and that's kind of what's cool about it. And it also is, it's kind of, this was before political correctness, and that movie, you've got some really evil brown people and some really evil, it's like the British general that Indy meets, at the temple is a good guy, but like this, the the Indian like nationalists, they're all secretly part of this Thuyi cult, and so and they've captured all, they've kidnapped all of these children from nearby villages, taken the Shankara stones. Yeah, I'm partial to Indy 2, and I actually like, and if you saw my review of Indy 4, the Crystal Skull, I don't think it's that bad either. I think but we definitely have a new winner now with the latest one. Yeah, it's terrible. I always thought Temple of Doom was the best. Scott, I think it's my second favorite. I think my favorite is still Raiders. Um, the order in which I like the Indiana Jones movies, and this has become more of interest to me lately because, in anticipation of the newest one, which I kind of knew was going to be bad, but I sort of still felt like I wanted to watch anyway. I rewatched all of the previous ones, and I would rank them as follows. I would say Raiders is first. It's just, it's really fresh. It's like the idea is new, and it's still like the best story, I think. The best, even though the budget's not the highest, it's of them all, it's still the most exciting one to watch. I find Temple of Doom is second. I thought it was good, and I actually thought that The Last Crusade is actually my third favorite. It's a lot of people's. The Last Crusade is a lot of people's favorite because of the Sean Connery appearance and because of the father-son stuff. I guess the banter between the two of them. But I really didn't think it was as. To me, it's just the third best. It's still in the original trilogy, which is leagues above the next two. Okay, and then Crystal Skull is the fourth best, but to me, Crystal Skull is like what it's kind of like what the Star Wars prequels were to the original trilogy. I was sort of an apologist for the Star Wars prequels, I didn't think they were that bad. I thought at least it's still continuing the story. It's still, I mean, even though the quality was obviously not as good, it was still Lucas's vision. And for all of Lucas's problems, one thing you can say about him is that he's not woke. He's not interested in being woke. He was never interested in woke stuff, even though he had like a strong female character in Princess Leia, and he's like a Northern California Marin County liberal, like aging hippie, but he's never been woke. He's never been interested in that. It's only when Disney got their grubby hands on it that they started with all the agendized stuff and the strong female character and all the old characters, the old male characters, looking ridiculous, looking weak. So it was really destroyed at that point. So I would say that Crystal Skull is like the prequels. It's not as good as the first three, but it's still leagues better than the Disney Lucasfilm version of Indiana Jones. Scott says Indy's really set up with various hero tropes rescuing children. Yes, he is correct. Yeah, I mean it's the It's something that was really into. I should say is really into, because he hasn't died or anything. He's not dead yet. He just hasn't really made a movie in a long time. Um, but yeah, the hero's journey. I mean, the what's his name? Campbell. I can't think of his first name now. The hero with 1,000 faces. He was into all of that. The mega myth, the monomyth. Yeah. Lenny says, Andy, the woke lots seem to be all over mainstream television. You won't get a job in TV or radio unless you're an insufferable clown. Yeah, they do. I can't say much about mainstream television as far as shows that are on. I remember a couple of years ago when I was in Dallas and I was laid up because I'd walked everywhere that day and I was just exhausted, and I'd just seen my Falcons just get absolutely destroyed by the Dallas Cowboys. And I'd had a motel room in Arlington, and I didn't want to park at the stadium, so I just walked there and walked back. But I remember I was watching some shows, and they, like some crappy, uh, like like CSI type shows, but they were all, yeah, like there were neo-Nazi domestic terrorists and all that. It was very 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 agendized, very insufferable. Um, More like the cold controlled opposition. I don't know what that means, but maybe you can explain. Clown World, so crazy watching Andy live is an active insurrection. You bet. Long live the insurrection. Sex Addict says, hey guys. Hi, hey yourself. Armored Ghost says, Atlanta overrated or awesome? You mean the Braves or the city? If we're talking baseball, if we're talking sports ball, and I'm sure that's what everybody came here for, was for me. I'm sure all 13 of you are here to hear me talk about sports. If we're talking about the Braves, no, they are not overrated. They are the real deal, baby. But the city, I don't even know if it's overrated. Is it rated that highly? Do people rave about it, how great Atlanta is? I mean, a lot of people live there. I've made my thoughts known about Atlanta, how I feel about Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, which I grew up in Metro Atlanta, but I'm glad I don't live there anymore. You know, I've talked all about that. Scott, oh, speaking of, I spent my 4th of July in Atlanta. I couldn't tell if I was hearing fireworks or gunshots. All right, that's a good line. Maynard James Keenan, have you ever spiraled out, man? I don't think so. I mean, I've had some times where I was, feeling pretty down and feeling, where I was feeling kind of wrecked and but have I ever spiraled out? Not really. Not yet. We'll see what happens. Charlie Don't Surf writes BLM, burn, loot, murder, I guess is what you mean. Khalud Saad writes something in Arabic. Okay. I can't read that, but Alanis Morissette has joined us. Hello, Alanis. I wish I could say I'm a bigger fan of your music, but in any case, it's an honor to have you here with us, and I'm sure this is the real Alanis Morissette. She writes, if you want to know the zeitgeist, read Nihilism, the root of the revolution of the modern age. That sounds familiar. I might have read it a long time ago. Vladimir says, I saw a top 50 American rock band first, and Smashing Pumpkins wasn't on it. Oh, a list of top 50 American rock, a rock band list, and Smashing Pumpkins wasn't on it. Well, I'm not a big Smashing Pumpkins fan, but I guess it's surprising. It's not that I dislike them. I'm just not really I'm sort of lukewarm towards them. I know, like in recent years, Billy Corgan has been sort of more based, right? Like he's gone on Alex Jones and stuff and talked about conspiracies and things. Um, yeah, I think they maybe that's why they weren't on the list. Maybe because Billy Corgan's not being a good little boy. That's my thought. Um, okay. Orthodox says I was at that setting. Now I'm not, but this is all due to God's providence. I'll be back in that setting soon. I should email you. Okay, cool. Um, Armored Ghost writes, Andy was live streaming back when South America magically moved on the map. Yeah, and it was like, wait a minute, look at that entire continent. I mean, I've heard of continental drift, but this is ridiculous. That whole continent just drifted 2,000 miles to the east. No, that's I joke, of course, but the Mandela effect is real. Whatever's causing it, it's real. Lenny writes, Andy, millions of public money wasted on a child musical in Dublin, Ireland. Look up Toy Show, the musical, unbelievable flop. Well, that's good to hear. I mean, was it woke? Was the kid gay or something? um, I'll look it up. I haven't heard about that one. Super Boomer, The Doors to Perception. Right, I know. That's who's the William Blake, right? That's where it comes from. Scott asks, what type of occultist was Morrison? I don't know. I don't know what I don't know how I could. I'm not sure how to answer that. Like you just in his lyrics, you can see, you know, evidence of it. But I mean, is there more than one type, really? I guess there are. I guess you can be, a cult just means hidden, technically. So you can be an occultist and not be, like a Crowleyan devil worshiper type. But I suspect that that might have been the type that he was. Super Boomer, it's dark. That's kind of what's cool about it. Andy, what is your preference for people changing? Yeah, so that quote was what I said about Temple of Doom. Super Boomer, I'm trying to understand how that relates to the question. What is my preference for people changing? What is my preference for people changing? I would prefer that people change for the better, but I don't know. I don't think that's what you're asking, but I don't quite understand your question. And I need to change too. Paul Wright, Mr. Mojo Risen's autobiography. Okay. Came out about 30 or 40 years ago. It came out, I guess, posthumously. Probably came out when that Oliver Stone movie came out. California owes Andy reparations for centuries of slavery. Okay. Morrison was I think you mean a black magician. He was a back magician. I guess he was a chiropractor. Walmart, I know what you mean. He was a black magician. Scott Terry, I've always been a big Owen Wilson fan and never knew about Minus Man until Andy's review. Such an interesting film. Thank you, Scott. I'm glad I was able to bring that movie to your attention. It's something I'm going to do a bit more of on my channel. I know it's not to everybody's taste. I know movie reviews are more to some people's taste than to others, but there are a lot of more obscure movies out there that don't get a lot of play, that don't get a lot of uh, I don't know, that people don't really pay attention to, and I kind of like to bring those to people's attention. Black. Okay, there you go. You corrected yourself. Andy's a Jar Jar apologist. Yes, I am. I mean, you gotta love he like Lucas had a Jamaican like a minstrel Jamaican alien, and then he had the Oriental, like the Trade Federation guys talked like Oriental. Like there was so much racist undertone, so many racist undertones to the prequel. You know that he's not. You know that Lucas isn't woke. Walmart. People say Morrison was a hedonist, and yes, he was a self-proclaimed one, but this is simply just a form of... Yeah. It's like, you live a life of excess, and that's like a supposed to be a kind of initiation into this occultist belief system. Because actual hedonism, I mean, Epicureanism. Epicurus was a philosopher, and he's the one who's considered to be the proponent of hedonism, but he did not say you should just go out and party all the time and drink and take drugs and take part in orgies, because that's not actually a pleasurable way to live. I mean, it's fun in the short term, and then you pay the price for it. You burn yourself out. He was saying the pleasurable way to live is through moderation. So, just food for thought there. Lenny, The Last Crusade has a spirit of raiders in it, and I love the 700-year-old Grail Knight. Laurence Olivier was meant to be cast. He was a lot like Laurence Olivier. I'd never thought about that, but he does very much resemble Olivier. Yes, and the great tagline, one of the best lines from the whole trilogy is, "He chose poorly." Armored Ghost, what did you think of Return of the Jedi again? It's my least favorite of the original trilogy. However, I have really good memories of it. I remember seeing it. It was in May of 1983, and it was like one of the most. I was 12 years old, and it was one of the most exciting days of my life. So looking back on it now, yeah, there are a lot of flaws, especially the Ewoks. If Lucas had just gone with having a Wookiee planet, think of how much better that would have been than having the Ewoks. But I would say the strongest point of that movie is the duel between Luke and Vader, with the Emperor tempting Luke to the dark side, and that part is very intense, and I think it's really stands the test of time. Other stuff in that movie really doesn't so much. Yeah, I would rank the original trilogy as like Empire Strikes Back is the best. I'm with the nerd consensus on that one. Star Wars or New Hope is the second best, and Return of the Jedi would be third. Paul Wright, I still have to see Adventures in Babysitting starring Elizabeth Shue. I've seen that. Seen that a couple times. Speaking of political correctness, there's a line in that, like where there's a brother and sister, and the brother teases the sister. The sister has a Thor doll, I remember, and the brother says Thor was a homo just to tease her. It's like, yep. In 1987, that was perfectly all right. That was fine. And Just like in Weird Science, the John Hughes movie Weird Science, when when the two nerds, being coached by Kelly LeBrock, decide they're not going to take it anymore, and Anthony Michael Hall says, "Okay, we've had enough of you and your faggot friends," and it's like, wow. Like, I'm telling you guys, in the '80s, it was different. It was it was before all this censorious started. Things were different, legitimately different. Return of the Jedi again. Paul Wright. Oh man, that's a staple of my childhood. Oh, Adventures in Babysitting with Elizabeth Shue. Yep, definitely crush worthy. Um, Although, as far as childhood crushes go, I have to say that Labyrinth. Who's the girl? The brunette in Labyrinth. I'm not remembering her name right now, but I was crushing hard on her, and we were both around the same age, so it was appropriate. It was actually appropriate crush to have. Um, okay, tell us about living in the '80s. Such a broad question. Um, well, I'll tell you what. The early '80s for me were great. The mid '80s were kind of sucky. The late '80s were getting better. But that's just me personally. That's like what that's less about the culture and everything. Um, I will say, like I've said before, there was no real irony. People think that back in the '80s. Again, I've made this point before. I know. I'm sorry if you're hearing me repeat myself here. But like you see, like if you saw some, if you watch some ridiculous music video, some heavy metal video, let's say, Motley Crue, or doesn't even have to be them. Some other video that's just ridiculous looking, and Culture Club, Wham, whatever. You know, like people didn't watch those videos and have like a ironic take on anything, or it wasn't very common. Irony, like if like the stuff that you look back on now and you laugh at and you appreciate in an ironic way, that didn't really exist in the '80s. You didn't really appreciate things ironically. It was just like, yeah, Motley Crue rules. you know. Um, so that's what it was like living in the '80s. Walmart. Actually, I don't want to ruin the vibe. Okay. Um, don't F word with the babysitter. That's right. um, Long live the insurrection. Yes, indeed. Uh, Sex addict. Andy, are you as big a fan of Joy Division as I am? I like the way that question is phrased, because there's no way for me to answer it, because I don't know how big of a fan of Joy Division you are. But I'm probably not. I'm guessing that you're a bigger fan than I am. I do like them, but I didn't really know. I didn't really discover them until a lot later. Um, Charlie, don't surf. Are you a writer? Yes, yes, I am. Type my name into a search engine. Go to Amazon and type my name, and you'll see. If you're being, unless you're just like taking the piss here, which whatever. Um, yeah, didn't consider the based Corgan factor. Interesting angle. Could be a reason. Could be, yeah. Could be something just totally random. I don't know. Maria says, "Hola, hello, back at ya." The Bry 2000. Andy, you said before you're a cinephile. Are you into physical media or do you prefer streaming? Um, I've become more and more enamored. I mean, I stream just because it's a habit, because I don't have a DVD player. I don't have a VCR. Um, but I am appreciating physical. I am appreciating analog media, or I guess somebody told me DVD is not really analog. Uh, it's still digital. But I am appreciating when you could just have something to yourself, where when it was just on tape or on disc. Um, More now, because it's, and I think there's been a movement towards towards analog. Like the whole analog horror uh, scene. Like those are all set in the past when things were more analog, because people are tired of everything being digital, and like everything being streaming, and everything being on the internet. And So when I say I'm a cinephile, though, I'm not really that technical of a guy. I don't really like. I can't tell you the difference between one kind of camera and another, or I don't know like the kind of technical stuff all that well. Um, but in answer to your question, I think I prefer physical media, but I do still stream when I watch stuff now. I stream just because it's practical. Scott Terry says, question for Andy: do you see the old alt-right talking heads returning to the public eye in the upcoming election, and/or a similar phenomenon? That's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, I would say no, because like because social media is doing everything it can to keep all those people, all those old alt-right talking heads from being able to be visible. But then again, on the other hand, there is a countervailing force. Um, and the federal judge just ruled against Biden's whole, like, um, fighting disinformation, the whole censorship campaign. And you've got Elon Musk out there platforming people like Tucker Carlson, who's not an alt-right guy, but he's gotten he's gotten more and more based. I think the best thing that happened to Tucker Carlson was maybe getting fired by Fox, because if you've watched his broadcasts, he's said things that he would have never said while he was still at Fox. So that's a good question, Scott. I mean, maybe there'll be more. I mean, if this countervailing force continues, this anti-censorship uh, continues. But then again, even the mainstream anti-censorship people, they tend to say, well, we can't have people like blah 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 out there. Like we've got to have respectable conservatives. So I don't know. Who knows? Good question though. John Maynard Keenan says the vocalist in Korn wrote a nearly 20-minute song called Daddy, and he broke down and cried for nearly 5 minutes weeping. The music is very demonic under the guise of therapy. I did not know that. Didn't Korn become a Christian band, or like did somebody in Korn become a Christian? It's strange though, the way you've described that song. It's kind of like The End by The Doors, which has the whole Dad, I want to kill you. Mom, I want to. I mean, it's a little different, but like the same sort of cathartic thing. Um, hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. There's incredible amounts of occult activity in music. Yeah, probably. Yes. Caroline says, hi. Hi. Hi yourself. The song is about him recounting his experience of being raped by raped by his dad? My gosh, if that's true. I like your PFP. Thank you. Um, when he was a child. He's thinking about his mom beating him in their edition of Not Another Brick in the Wall. Ooh, okay, crosstalk here. Um, Scott says, everything Andy just said about Return of the Jedi applies to me, but for Indiana Jones' Last Crusade, biggest movie event of my childhood. That's great. That's fun. That's fun to hear. I mean, that shows, you're a few years younger than me, because Return of the Jedi was 83, Last Crusade was 89. Um, Chris Surface asks, hey Andy, have you ever considered watching Japanese films or older European films that aren't woke? Yeah, I've watched a few Japanese films and older European films that aren't woke. I'm wondering who you have in mind when you say that. Like, which directors do you mean? I mean, I've watched a fair number of foreign films, but like the older films are it's kind of a different viewing experience to watch older films. Okay, Scott says I'm a big fan of the swashbuckling genre, which is what Lucas and Spielberg were drawing on with Indiana Jones, of course. Two Pyramid says, one Mandela effect for me is Return of the Jedi coming out in '83. I was alive then, but have zero memory of it coming out that early. Interesting. Yes, Jennifer Connelly. Oh yeah. I mean, and it wasn't like a lustful thing for me. It was like, wow, she's beautiful. And her character was kind of sad. She was sort of moping and sulking. It was like, it's okay. It's okay. I'd, I'd comfort her. It's pretty pathetic to hear it now, but that was how I was feeling while I was watching the movie. Um, my mom looks like her, the actress from it. Oh wow. Okay. Well, good for your mom. Yeah, Jennifer Connelly. She was also in Career Opportunities. Oh, I know. And she was also in that awful movie about drug addiction that I'm sorry I ever watched. Um, yeah, I don't remember titles when I'm under the gun like this. I don't remember names. I don't remember titles. Oh, Requiem for a Dream. Man, I wish I could take back having ever watched that. That's one of those movies that was just so scarring. Walmart says, I feel like the 80s probably kind of sucked-ish if you lived through it. Well, I'd like to hear why you'd say that. You know, uh, I think it was better then than it is now. But then again, in some ways it's better now because now we know more than we did then. We didn't really know that much. We kind of thought uh, we didn't really know that they were lying to us nonstop all the time, and that we were ruled by pedophiles, and we didn't really know that at the time. So in some ways, it's better now, because there has been I mean, that's what apocalypse means. It means when that which is hidden becomes manifest. So in that way of thinking, we're definitely living in an apocalyptic age. I like 70s music more than 80s. It's more calm. Well, it's Gordon Lightfoot. I was just thinking about his song Sundown today. I love that song. It's calm. It's calm, but there's a real, like a sort of there's like a to that song anyway. There's this real intensity. Some of the lyrics are really haunting. Um, I can see her lying back in the satin dress in the room where you do what you don't confess. Wow. Um, that's really funny. You should mention Gordon Lightfoot. I was just thinking about that song today. Mr. Chuck the Buck Norris, what's your opinion of David Cole? It's funny you should ask. I actually like did a couple of appearances with him. Um, way back when, gosh, how long ago now? Like around 2016. We did we talked to him, and there were a couple. I when I was still on Facebook, we would, I would react to his posts. He would react sometimes to mine. He was a really funny guy and an interesting guy, but the thing is, like, he I remember we did not part on the best of terms. Um, I can't remember what it was though. Um, I can't remember, but it was. I know that um, I wasn't. Uh, I mean, it's been a long time since I've thought about him. Um, I guess I sort of thought he was a little bit of a weasel. There was something a little weaselly about him, even though like he was likable in a lot of ways. He was a really funny guy. Um, but I remember he was like kind of dismissive. It was around Pizzagate. It was with Pizzagate stuff. He was being dismissive of Pizzagate and like mocking, and that was like the beginning of me just saying, you know, like, you really want to, I don't know. My impression was that I don't think I want to go into it right now because I think it's not the most. My impression was not the most charitable thing, and of course I just said there was something kind of weaselly about him. So I guess I already said something kind of uncharitable. But interesting guy for sure. Interesting guy and interesting history. You know, like a Holocaust revisionist Jew. That's interesting. Spinning fan is causing the live video to lag a bit. Really? The fan is doing that? Okay. The fan is very bigoted and hateful. Okay, you're a sex addict. You say you're a huge fan. I'm not going to turn the fan off because otherwise I'm burning up in here. So, uh, you won't have to put up with me for too much longer. This isn't going to go on too much, too much longer than it already has. Paul Wright, I recommend The Americans with TV show. It's evocative of today's Russian paranoia. I watched a little bit of it. And it was interesting. My problem with it was it just seemed like it strained credulity. Like every week they were like putting themselves in mortal danger, and like they had two kids, and it was just sort of weird. But yeah, you're right though. Um, Evocative of today's Russian paranoia. That's true. Armored Ghost, do you think people have a weird obsession with traveling nowadays, or do people always like to do that as much as they seem to today? I think people do have a weird obsession with traveling. Some people do. I like to travel myself. I sort of have a thing with traveling, or I'd like to travel more. But it's true that people sort of think nowadays that if you haven't traveled the world, you haven't really lived. And I don't think that's the right way to see things. I think you can live a full life and not travel much. Like I've heard it said, Jesus didn't travel more than like 20 miles over the course of his life. I don't know if it was that little of amount. He didn't travel unless after his resurrection he went to India, like all the New Agers say. CJ says moo. Good to have the cow population among us. Travel is definitely a fad now, says two Pyramid. It was not popular in the past like it is now. Right. International travel was actually seen as a little weird or elitist. Right, but now it's like you're just so insular if you've never left your country, you really need to travel more. And I say that as somebody who likes to travel, right? I once thought it would be really cool to be a travel writer, actually. And I'd do it. I'd still do it if somebody if somebody gave me the job, I would do it. But it has to be kept within perspective. Paul Wright, Julian Sand's remains were found on a California mountain a week ago. Wow, I didn't even know that. Paul, I think you're the one who filled me in on that whole ongoing thing. So this is just like a mystery of like what happened to him. Like, do people just think that he went and got lost and couldn't find his way back? Wow, that's very sad and very strange too. They got him. Scott says maybe they did. Walmart says his is my favorite chat because we can just say random stuff that we find interesting and Andy will respond to it. The thing about that song Daddy is creepy. Daddy. Oh, okay, yeah, the song you were talking about. Well, thanks. Glad I'm your favorite chat. Glad I can be chatting again. Sex Addict says, what other Paul Schrader movies do you like? Oh, man. Besides Taxi Driver, you mean? I don't know. I don't think I know other Paul Schrader movies all that well. Like, there are other movies that he wrote the screenplay for that Scorsese directed, right? Like Raging Bull. Maybe even King of Comedy. Did he write that one too? I'm not sure. So I don't know. I don't know if I can really answer. As far as the ones that he directed, I remember Hardcore with George C. Scott, but I saw that a long, long time ago. I can't think of anything else right now. Calmly intense. And these goings down. Yo, Andy's back live from Savannah. Yep. The only alt dude from back in the day who can hold his head up after all the sellouts. That's right. That's right. I can hold my head up high. Thank you for the kind words. ITGD, to call you by your initials. Lenny, Andy, did you know Gremlins director Chris Columbus did a rejected 90s Indy Jones script involving Indy battling a Scottish ghost and an African pygmy, had the Fountain of Youth and was kidnapped by Nazis? Had no idea. Did not know. I've never heard about that. So he wrote a script, but I guess it never, like most scripts that go around, nothing ever came of it. Sex Addict says Gordon Lightfoot is amazing. WTF am I watching? Asks, have you heard from Egg White lately? I haven't heard from him personally, but I haven't really, I've never really had a personal, like, we don't really talk. I mean, there was that one, not because we have anything against each other. It's just, we're not like, we're not like friends. Even though he seems like a cool guy, and he was nice enough to do that interview with me at the Virgin Fest concert. I mean, I've heard him on some YouTube channels, like the Simeon Jimmy channel, and he's done some funny videos where they eat gross stuff and talk about it. But no, I haven't heard from him personally. No. Did you catch a sex addict asks? That reminds me, did you catch any of Todd Thundercock's 24-hour stream? No, I didn't. I didn't. I missed it. I know that I remember seeing that he was going to do it. That he, I guess he got off of YouTube for a little while, and then he maybe got back on YouTube. Todd Thundercock, or Grotesque Subhuman, as he's also been called. I heard that he was going to just go around for 24 hours and just stream all day, just his daily routine. And I just sort of thought, well, no, I don't think I'm going to watch that. But I mean, I thought it was funny. I thought the idea was funny. Okay, Orthodox. Prodigal Man in the Desert. Type that in on here and you'll find a great song similar to Gordon Lightfoot's style. Okay. Written by an Orthodox priest. Sounds interesting. Oh no. Scott Terry trying to revive some controversy. This is like a Jay Dyer thing, isn't it? Is that what you're trying to conjure up here, Scott? Like, isn't that something that Jay Dyer was talking about, and that people were mad at him about, or that he was mad at other people about? Scott asks, Andy, are you still in a feud with Colin L? And if you two got into a fight, who would win? Yes, we are still feuding. And if we got into a fight, I bet he would win because I bet he fights dirty. So yeah, there. That's where that stands. Lenny, yes, Chris Columbus met Lucas and Spielberg and said to them, "I blew it, didn't I?" And they said, "Yeah." So obviously the film didn't get produced. Yeah, he definitely waited too long to do another 19 years. And from what I understand, Harrison Ford actually liked the character Indiana Jones, unlike Han Solo, who he hated and didn't want to do. In fact, he wanted to die. He wanted to die in Return of the Jedi, but they decided not to kill him. William Wolfgang, new voice. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on the David Mamet film Edmund with William H. Macy. Okay, I haven't seen it. I haven't even heard of it, but I'll check it out. Edmund. Let me write that down on my computer here. Edmund. Okay. Okay, Lenny says Paul Schrader's 2003 drama Affliction. Drama Affliction with James Coburn, Nick Nolte. Oh yeah, Affliction. His drama called Affliction with James Coburn, Nick Nolte, William Dafoe, and Sissy Spacek is pretty good as a man unraveling in middle age. Has a mysterious ending. I remember that movie. Was it from 2003? I thought it was like a little earlier than that. But I do remember the movie. Orthodox. I think that Scott's just trying to... Scott's just making trouble, Orthodox. Edmund. Is that a Jamaican accent? I don't know. I don't really do impressions. It's not among my talents. I have a lot of talents, of course, but that's just not one of them. Are you going down in these goings down? Asks, are you familiar with the Grimace Shake analog horror TikToks? No, I'm not. I've got to familiarize myself with those, even though I don't have TikTok. I'll find. I'm sure they've been posted on YouTube. That's hilarious. Grimace Shake analog horror. That's funny. Affliction was 2002. I thought it was more like 1999, but who knows? Um, I remember certain things, but not others. Um, Scott Terry, I'm still trying to wrap my head around Donnie Darko. It's like, Scott, what you reminding me of now, and I know you like the show Community, uh, like Troy, there's that episode where Troy was like breaking down saying, I didn't get Inception. I didn't get Inception. That's what you're reminding me of right now. Yeah, Donnie Darko, it's there are some enigmatic things about it. One of you just, I remember, talked to me about the movie Primer, and I had actually seen it before, but I re-watched it again thanks to one of you telling me about it. And that, you want to talk about a movie that is totally befuddling. It's intriguing, but it's totally like you're left totally in the dark unless you're just much smarter than me. I had, and then I watched Primer Explained, and that cleared it up. Basically, that cleared it up for me. Um, but yeah, I didn't. There's some movies I don't. There's some movies I don't think you're supposed to get. There's some where I don't think there's anything to get. They just kind of fool you into thinking there's something to get. Like a lot of David Lynch movies, I think are like that. Especially the ones that he made after, like in the 90s and later. I don't really think there's a there. It's just all about the atmosphere. Cobra got a Best Supporting Oscar, I think. Okay. Patrick Swayze's self-help character getting exposed as a pedo. Yeah, that's right. And then that all unravel, and then like that happens, and then it all gets undone. That's one of the more disturbing things, when at the end of the movie, it goes back a few days, and he actually dies. Actually dies. Sorry to. I'm not really. It sounds like I'm spoiling it, but I'm not really spoiling it. Where things go back to how they're supposed to be, but that means that Swayze's character never gets exposed. I remember thinking that can't be right. Yeah, you love Community. Yes, Scott, I've heard about the Community movie coming. 6 seasons in a movie. That's right. Mulholland Drive is an excellent example of a David Lynch movie that I don't think it's like if you're looking for what really what happened, what you missed, or thinking that there's something that you missed, I don't think there is anything. Alanis Morissette asks, "What's Under the Nile about?" Under the Nile is about a man who has a. This is a book of mine that I published initially in 2011, and then published with Terror House, I think in 2021, and it's a book about a man who has a psychotic breakdown. He wants to be a priest, but he gets booted from seminary because he's found to be psychologically unstable. He has a breakdown for myriad reasons, and then he gets offered this chance to be a guinea pig, essentially for an agency, a mysterious agency that wants him to take this substance called Nihil, spelled Nihil. Uh, that's it's meant to it's an experimental drug, but the idea is that by taking it, you lose your fear of death, you lose your inhibitions. Yeah, nihil means nothing. It does. I mean, literally translated, I think it means nothing. Um, Section was great. Sandra 9999. Okay. Oh, I forgot Sex Addict. I forgot that Mishima Life in Four Chapters was directed by Schrader. I forgot about that. I have seen that. It's been a little while, but I saw it. I saw it, and it was good. And of course I was into Mishima before he became this fixture of the alt right. I mean, I was into Mishima way back in like 2000. I was reading Mishima novels. Alanis Morissette asked, "Do you like the movie Fight Club?" Oh my gosh, it's like my favorite. It's one of my favorites. It would be up in my top 5. Yes, love it. Sandra, thanks for the hearts. Alana says, also, I have an affinity for the movie Silent Hill. Now, the second, the first is incredible and has a secret kitchen esoteric stuff. Okay, I haven't seen Silent Hill, but I'll check that one out, just like I'll check out Edmund by David Mamet. And I'll see what I think. I'm actually writing that down now, so don't forget. Gabriel. Okay. 1774, Bad Ronald, the TV movie. No, I don't know that one. Artist, sorry. And then Sandra says, "Oi, not in the Jewish way, but in the skinhead way." And that's the last message I've got here. This has already gone on longer than I expected it to. I'll take a few more comments or questions, and then we'll wrap this up because I don't want to go on for too long. Did you see Multiplicity? I remember it, but I've never seen it. Michael Keaton's acting the tit. It's strange. This is really strange, but I once really had a thing for Andie MacDowell. Looking back now, I kind of think to myself, what did I really see in her? I think it was her hair. She had this kind of like this wavy, this how would you describe it? Like I understand that in the Islamic world, there's this eroticization of women's hair, and that's why they wear veils and stuff. Because if you see a woman like toss her hair around, that's like us seeing a pair of breasts. But anyway, I really liked her. Her hair was beautiful, but I don't know. She wasn't really that. Looking back now, I think she wasn't really as gorgeous as I thought she was. Okay, yes, Silent Hill, not Silent Hill Revelation. Which of your fiction would you like to see filmed? I say Heart Killer. I think Heart Killer would be great to see filmed. I also think the Columbine Pilgrim would be great to see filmed. I think most of my fiction actually lends itself to the cinema because I write kind of cinemagraphically. I'm heavily influenced by movies, so when I write, it's kind of like a movie. I kind of conceive of it as a movie, if that makes any sense. So I'd say all of them would work. Two Pyramid. Have you heard that the name James Alefantis is code for J'aime l'enfance? Yes. I love children. Yeah. Yep. I've heard all about that. It certainly is an odd name, Elephantis. I've never heard of anybody else with that name. The Road. I've heard a lot about it. I actually think The Road might just be too bleak for me, from what I've heard about it. And there would be a time in my life when I would totally, like, the bleaker the better. Like when I was in my early 20s, I would say, hey man, is that really bleak and really violent and really awful? I want to see it now. I want, but now as an older man, I've kind of like, if it's too bleak, I just don't know. I've got one hand in my pocket and the other is taking Nile. Okay. Have you seen the new Black Mirror episodes? Yeah, I've seen some of them. Um, I liked a couple of them, and a couple of them I thought were okay. But in general, the whole Black Mirror show kind of rubs me the wrong way. Um, I think it's quite woke, and that's irksome. I can I can deal with some of that, but they push it a little too far. Um, I think my favorite episode was the recent series of the recent season was the one with that was set in some Scottish village where the guy's mom turns out to be the killer. I just gave away the ending, even though that had certain woke elements to it, like the black girlfriend and stuff like that. I still thought that was like a fun and suspenseful episode. Uh, but there are other episodes I'm just like, God, I just can't sit through this. And the one about like the one that led off the season about like the actress playing the actress who's real, and then she's being played by an actress on what's supposed to be Netflix, and all that meta stuff, and they own all the rights, and then they destroy the main actress destroys the. I thought that was okay, but there's still something about it that kind of irked me. Oh, Andy, I forgot. Yes, of course, she was in Groundhog Day. I forgot her quoting the poem. Uh, Artist rendition, bring back the P.O. box. Okay, maybe I will. Maybe I will. Okay, beans. Okay, maybe this beans. I'm getting this barrage of somebody saying beans. Maybe that's my cue to bring this to a close. Alanis Morissette asks, do you like George R. R. Martin? He writes like a soap opera. No numbered chapters, just name of person for each chapter. I haven't read anything by George R. R. Martin, and I haven't even watched Game of Thrones. I don't know why. I just haven't. I just haven't done it. But I know a lot of people who really like his writing. Um, okay. Lenny, they will reboot Indiana Jones in a few years with a new Chad-looking Indian, 90-year-old Harrison Ford as his dad. I don't think so. I don't think so, Lenny. I think they're done. I think it's done. I don't think we're going to see any more Indiana Jones features. I think it's been Indy's been murdered. Um, and it should have there should never have been a fifth movie. There probably should never have been a fourth movie. Although I'm not as down on the fourth movie as a lot of people. But really the fourth movie was kind of just a money grab, I think. Um, but the fifth movie is an abomination that should never have been made. Scott says we're never going to survive unless we get a little literary. Right. Yeah, you think that's Liddell trying to trying to F things up? Maybe so. Okay. Well, Kathleen Kennedy working on Indiana Jones 6. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Don't think that's happening. Well, thanks everybody for your questions. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for the stimulating and fun conversation. And Wiki, his words are so sticky. He lays them on your brain like a sticker. Another Earth. I'm not sure the culture right now is apt for an adventurous archaeologist. Yeah, I think that the time for the adventurous archaeologists have come and gone. Brilliant live stream. Thank you. Um, all right. Well, good night, everybody. Talk to y'all soon. Thanks a lot for coming by.